In 2006, millions of kids across America sat in movie theaters and, for many of them, learned for the first time what fear underwater felt like. Not the shark from Jaws. A spotted creature with a flat, snake-like head surged up from beneath the ice and chased a little penguin named Mumble for nearly 10 minutes of screen time, long enough that parents found themselves pulling their kids in close. Happy Feet didn't need to invent a monster. The filmmakers simply drew exactly what that animal actually does. It was the leopard seal. You may have never heard its name, but if you've ever watched an Antarctic documentary, you've seen it, the silver-grey shadow gliding beneath the ice, waiting for a colony of penguins to leap into the water. And here's what makes this animal's story unlike anything else this channel has covered. It isn't simply a killing machine that humans have underestimated. It's a living paradox. In 2006, the same year, the movie hit theaters. A National Geographic photographer named Paul Nicklin dove into the waters off Antarctica to photograph this exact species. What happened next didn't match anything science had ever documented. A massive female leopard seal, over 270 kilograms, caught a live penguin, then let it go, right in front of him. Again, 10 times. When she realized this man had no idea how to hunt, she began bringing him dead ones instead. Then she started placing the penguin carcasses on top of his head. For 4 days straight. Just 3 years earlier, in 2003, that exact same species had dragged a British scientist down to a depth of 70 meters and never let go. So which animal is real? The killer, or the one trying to teach a total stranger how to survive? The answer, as you're about to find out, is more unsettling than either possibility on its own, because it isn't one or the other. It's both, inside the same brain, switching in an instant. And to understand how, we need to look at a part of its body almost nobody talks about. Not its mouth, something smaller and far more revealing. Picture a chef running 2 completely different restaurants out of the same kitchen at once. A kitchen that never closes, only changes its menu with the seasons. That's essentially how the leopard seal survives around the seasonal ring of Antarctic sea ice. From August through October, when ice cover peaks, penguin colonies and seal pups cluster densely around pressure, cracks the only places they can enter or exit the water. This is menu 1. Meat, warm blood, dense calories. But by February or March, when sea ice hits its yearly low, Restaurant 1 effectively shuts down. Most other seal species face serious scarcity at this point. The leopard seal doesn't. It simply switches to menu 2, sucking in seawater packed with krill, forcing it back out through gaps between trident-shaped cheek teeth, trapping thousands of krill in a single mouthful, in a process not unlike how a baleen whale filter feeds. No other pinniped on Earth does both with the same jaw. And this isn't a backup skill used only in desperation. It's the core survival strategy that has shaped this species for roughly 15 million years, ever since its lineage split off from its closest relative, the Ross seal. But those 2 restaurants, despite running smoothly for millions of years, are now facing a supply crisis on both fronts at once. Along the western Antarctic peninsula, home to the highest density of leopard seals on the planet, sea ice cover has declined by an estimated 21 to 28% over recent decades. Krill populations have dropped alongside it, partly because sea ice itself is where the algae krill feed on grows, compounded by rising commercial fishing pressure. In other words, both menus in that kitchen are shrinking at the same time. And for a species that spent 15 million years engineering itself to never depend on a single food source, This is the first time both fallback options are in trouble simultaneously. Before we get to teeth or jaws, let's talk about a small body part that videos, articles, and even some popular scientific accounts of this species almost never mention: the whiskers. That might not sound frightening, but in true seals, the Phocid family whiskers aren't decorative fur. They're one of the most sophisticated hydrodynamic sensor systems in the animal kingdom. Research published in PNAS shows that in harbor seals, the best-studied member of this family whiskers can detect the trail of a moving object 30 seconds after it passed, even with both vision and hearing completely blocked. The whiskers have a distinctive undulating structure that reduces self-generated turbulence while swimming, allowing them to pick up minute vibrations in the water. Everything from a fish's breathing current to the lingering vortex trail left behind by a moving body. This is why a true seal can still hunt successfully, even when blind, a phenomenon that's been documented in the wild. Leopard seals, part of the same family, are believed to inherit the same sensing system. In other words, it doesn't need to see its prey. It can read the wake the prey leaves behind. Now, hold that against the part of its body most commonly discussed: the mouth. A leopard seal's jaw opens to 160 degrees, compared to roughly 45 degrees for a human jaw. Up front are long, curved canines built for gripping large prey. Behind them are multi-cusped cheek teeth that interlock to form the krill-filtering structure. And there's one detail worth correcting here, because a lot of sources, including some popular English language ones, still get this wrong. It's commonly said that leopard seals skin penguins as a deliberate surgical technique. Closer anatomical study suggests that's not accurate. Leopard seals don't have teeth sharp enough to slice cleanly. The real mechanism is the neck unusually long compared to other seals, with a flexibility close to that of a reptile, letting the animal whip its head side to side with tremendous force, slamming the prey against the water's surface until the body comes apart. The result looks like a deliberate skinning technique, but it's really just the physical byproduct of a brute force thrash, not a biological blade, as many people assume. Now, compare this to the species most easily confused for it, the craybeater seal. Similar size, the same silvery grey coat flecked with spots, frequently misidentified by tourists on expedition ships. But the craybeater seal has only the filtering teeth, no predatory canines for warm-blooded prey, and according to studies of skull anatomy, its whisker system is also noticeably less developed than the leopard seals, consistent with a lifestyle built purely around filter feeding, with no need to read a fleeing prey's trail. From a distance, the two animals look almost identical, but only one of them can sense exactly where you're swimming, even without seeing you. But the differences don't stop at whiskers or teeth. Place the leopard seal next to its other relatives in the same Antarctic waters, and a whole set of other paradoxes come into view. The elephant seal, a species that can weigh up to 3,600 kilograms, 6 times the mass of an adult leopard seal, is the one that actively avoids confrontation when the two cross paths on the ice. Not every time, but the threshold for an elephant seal deciding to move on appears to be lower than it is for most other threats it encounters. That's rare in nature. The one being avoided isn't the largest animal in the room. Lifestyle marks another sharp departure. Elephant seals and fur seals typically gather in large colonies to breed, with clear hierarchies among competing males. The leopard seal, by contrast, spends nearly its entire life alone, an unusual trait for an apex predator of its size, and quite possibly the reason its sensory systems, the whiskers, and the acoustic songs had to become so sophisticated in the first place. With no nearby companions to share information through group behavior, every signal about prey, territory, or danger has to be gathered and processed by the animal entirely on its own. And finally, most other Antarctic seals, including the massive elephant seal, are potential prey for orcas. The leopard seal sits almost entirely outside the predated side of that food chain. Only a specialized group of orcas, ones that specifically hunt marine mammals, are believed to occasionally target it. but the data on this remains too thin to say for certain. An animal that isn't the largest, doesn't live in groups, has almost no natural predators, and can see the world without ever needing its eyes. Set next to any other Antarctic seal, it doesn't look like a variation within the same family. It looks like an exception to it. Now, picture every mechanism operating at once, aimed at a real target. It waits just beneath the ice edge, not at any random spot, but exactly at a pressure crack. The one place a penguin has no choice but to dive in or climb out. Its whiskers have already read the wake before its eyes ever confirm the prey. The moment the penguin hits the water, the chase begins, but it doesn't go for the body or the head. It goes for the feet, the trailing limbs, the part of the animal least able to defend itself. The prey is seized, not killed instantly. Then the long, reptile flexible neck we just described goes to work, whipping the head side to side with tremendous force, slamming the penguin's body against the surface again and again until it comes apart into swallowable pieces. The entire process takes only a few minutes. And here's the detail that stops even seasoned researchers in their tracks. During peak breeding season, when the local penguin population surges, leopard seals have been documented eating 15 or more penguins in a single day. Not out of hunger, not to stockpile reserves, simply because prey is abundant, and that hunting mechanism needs no other reason to fire again and again. Footage of this exists. It is not footage most people choose to watch twice. And this is precisely the process that made scientists stop and ask questions when that same species, using that same mechanism, unexpectedly showed up in a completely different context, not with a penguin, but with a human being. Before getting to the 22nd of July 2003, it's worth knowing this wasn't the first incident involving this species in recorded history. In 1915, during Ernest Shackleton's famous trans-Antarctic expedition, a crew member named Thomas Order-Lees was separated from his group and chased across the sea ice by a leopard seal. He survived only because his companion, Frank Wild, heard his cries and shot the animal dead. 70 years later, in 1985, Scottish explorer Gareth Wood was seized by the leg by another leopard seal that surged up through cracking ice and escaped only when his companions repeatedly kicked the animal's head with ice crampons. Both incidents were documented, but neither resulted in a death. That changed in 2003. Kirsty Brown, 28, a marine biologist with the British Antarctic Survey (BAS), was snorkeling with a colleague near Rothera Research Station, studying how iceberg movement affects the seabed. An adult leopard seal appeared, seized her, and pulled her down to roughly 70 meters, holding her underwater for nearly 6 minutes. Her colleague pulled her back onto the boat. Station staff performed CPR continuously for an hour. She did not survive. She had suffered 45 separate lacerations. It remains the first confirmed human fatality caused by this species. What troubled BAS scientists most wasn't just the death itself, it's that it didn't match any behavioral pattern they'd previously documented. Following the incident, BAS conducted a study compiling 3 decades of human-leopard seal interaction, data dive logs, snorkeling records, and field observations. The findings were striking. Underwater encounters, where divers or snorkelers came into direct contact with leopard seals, were almost always described as curious, not aggressive. The animal would typically circle, observe, sometimes approach closely, but rarely follow through with a real attack. The strongest reactions were reserved for the exact spots where the animal was actively hunting the ice edges, where it ambushes penguins, exactly as described in the hunting sequence above. Kirsty Brown's case fit neither pattern. She wasn't near an ice edge where the animal hunts, and unlike most prior documented cases where the animal was typically observed approaching from a distance first, this seal attacked without ever having been sighted beforehand. It's the only case in the entire 30-year record with that particular combination of circumstances. So what happened? This is where the whiskers come back into the story. A snorkeler kicking continuously near the surface generates a swirling wake, a hydrodynamic signature not entirely unlike the wake left by prey trying to escape. If a leopard seal's whisker sensing system functions similarly to a harbor seal's, it could plausibly lock onto a wake like that from a distance before anyone ever sees it coming, and before the animal itself needs its eyes to confirm what the target actually is. This remains a theory, not a confirmed scientific conclusion, but it fits precisely what made this incident different. Not a curious encounter that escalated too far, but possibly a sensory signal misread by a creature that experiences the world in a fundamentally different way than humans do. Whiskers aren't the only sense that lets leopard seals operate without relying on sight. In 2003, the same year as the Kirsty Brown incident, researcher Tracy Rogers published a discovery that stunned the field. Leopard seals sing. Not metaphorically. These are structured, repeating underwater vocal sequences, sometimes lasting up to an hour, spanning frequencies from 200 to 8,000 Hz, part audible to humans, part infrasound, capable of traveling tens of kilometers through water and ice. That means the same animal can feel its prey through vibrations in the water nearby, and simultaneously announce its presence across a vast territory it has never physically set eyes on. For this species, vision is just one layer of information among many, not necessarily the most important one. And that's exactly what explains the strangest paradox in this entire story. The female leopard seal's behavior toward Paul Nicklin from part 1, when she kept bringing him live and dead penguins. That wasn't simply a gift in the way humans understand the term. Many researchers believe this may be instructional behavior, a way of teaching hunting skills, a behavior that has also been documented occurring between leopard seals themselves. But when Nicklin didn't respond the way she seemed to expect, didn't catch the prey, didn't produce the right signals, she was reading through multiple sensory channels at once. She began exhaling sharply and making low guttural sounds, the same threat display she uses against rivals, the same layered sensory system, whiskers, sound, and possibly other signals humans haven't identified yet, is capable of producing what looks like care and can shift into a threat display within seconds, whenever the signals it receives don't match what it expected to read from its surroundings. This isn't two different animals. It's a consequence of living inside a sensory world that humans can barely imagine one, where misreading a signal can be fatal in either direction. That finely tuned sensory system works best in a stable, predictable environment, exactly the kind of environment that's disappearing. Declining sea ice doesn't just eliminate the familiar ambush spots described in Part 2. It also increases the number of unfamiliar signals that the leopard seal's whisker and acoustic systems have to process every day. Tour boats, research vessels, divers, all generating wakes and sounds that 15 million years of evolution never had to classify. Antarctic tourism and research diving numbers keep climbing every year, while the stable ice this animal relies on to read signals correctly keeps shrinking. In terms of conservation status, the International Union for Conservation of Nature currently lists the leopard seal as least concern, but even the population figures reflect deep uncertainty. The most recent coordinated surveys estimate at least 35,000 individuals, while older estimates, based on less reliable methods from the 1970s and 80s, put the number anywhere from 220,000 to 440,000. That gap shows how little we actually understand about how many of these sensory systems are operating out there and how many new noisy signals they're having to process each year. Researcher Ian Boyd, who analyzed the Kirsty Brown case, offered exactly the right warning for the future. As human activity in Antarctica increases, so does the likelihood of more situations where a signal gets misread in either direction, curiosity or attack. Go back to where this video started. A leopard seal, placing a dead penguin on Paul Nicklen's head, in the very same waters where, 3 years earlier, a member of the exact same species had taken a scientist's life. We tend to want to sort animals into categories. This one is gentle, this one is dangerous. But the leopard seal doesn't fit into that kind of sorting because it doesn't inhabit the same sensory world we do. It sees through vibrations in the water that our hands can't feel. It speaks in frequencies our ears can't hear. For a creature like this, the line between caring and threatening isn't a moral decision. It's the outcome of correctly or incorrectly reading a signal in a fraction of a second, through senses that science is still only beginning to decode. We know it has existed this way for at least 15 million years, sensing, signaling, waiting patiently at the ice edge long before the first human ever set foot on Antarctica. And we know that, despite decades of research, scientists still can't say for certain what will happen in the next moment when a swimmer and a leopard seal find themselves close together, because the answer doesn't live inside the mind of the human observer. It lives inside a sensory system we've only just begun to understand a small fraction of. Next time you see a cute photo of this animal, remember, it isn't looking at you the way you think it is. There's a good chance it already knew you were there before you ever noticed it. If this video changed the way you see Antarctica, hit subscribe, because there are creatures out there that don't need light to exist, and we're still learning how to see them the way they see us.